everyone, it's Brianna Estrella, and I'm so excited to bring a process video to y'all today to celebrate Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine's 19th birthday. It is their birthday week, and I am so excited to share a birthday layout with y'all today. Now, I am working with these beautiful cut files designed by Paige Evans. And I have them cut out already on a piece of textured white cardstock, and I am going to be working with the Hip Hip Hooray collection from Echo Park. I have it, I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to go ahead and start working on my cut file. I did work on this layout. It did take me a little bit, so I did have a lot of footage that I had to try to condense down. So hopefully I did try to keep a lot of my process in the video, but I did speed it up in certain parts. Okay, so what I'm going to work on first is this amazing birthday cake. I love Paige's cut files. I think they're so versatile and they're so creative. And what's great about this cut file is you can take out the cake pieces and design your cake. So I opted to go ahead and back the cake portion of this cut file with actual just solid colored cardstock, and I'm using the coordinating cardstock pages from Echo Park, and I'm just quickly taking the inside of my cut file and tracing it on the back side of the paper I want to use, and then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut around my pencil marks, just leaving a little bit around my drawn marks just so it has enough space to fit in the back of my cut file. Now you can actually, in your Silhouette, or I believe your Cricut software, I operate on a Silhouette, so unfortunately I can't say how to do it on a Cricut, but if you're a Silhouette user, you can actually cut each piece using your Silhouette by using the offset setting, but I opted just to do the old school way and trace each piece and then hand cut it. Now you can do it this way, or you can actually remove the entire cut file and trace it that way. I just thought it was easier just to take out each of these pieces, trace them, and then hand cut them. The frosting portion was a little bit tricky, but I was able to figure it out and just cut a little bit slower, only because it has so much of those wavy lines. So I'm just going to continue cutting out the pieces of this beautiful cut file. Now, I do have to say that there is one more word in this cut file that I did not cut out, and I believe it's the word hooray. And what's great about this these cut files, or especially the words, you can actually size them down so it can fit inside your cake. But I actually wanted my title to be on the outside of my cake, so I just left it its normal size. I did shrink down the cake from the original cut file size, that way it could fit in my page, as well as I had to keep in mind, because I was using 4 photos, I wanted to make sure I had room for each of those photos. Alright, so now I'm just going through the pattern paper from this collection, and I'm going to be choosing certain patterns that would be great for my candles in this cut file. I'm looking for more of a condensed pattern, more of a smaller one, not so spread out like this one that you're looking at here, this page. I'm not using that side. I'm going to actually use the other side, because if I were to use these for such a small design, you get a lot of the white, and I wanted more of the pattern. So I took out one of the pieces from or one of the candle pieces, and it's that tiny little strip that you see there, and I used it as a guideline to cut each of my candles out. And then now I'm going to work on my cake plate, and I did actually design it on my personal around my personal cake plate that I have. It's like a jadeite glass, so I did pick this mint cardstock. So like I've been doing, I'm just taking the inside of that cut file, turning over my paper, tracing it, and then cutting around my trace lines. So here is my cake. I've got one of my frosting pieces as well as my cake stand. Now I did want to add a little bit of depth and dimension, so I'm doing a little bit of some ink blending to the sides and adding some shading to each of my pieces, and I love how it turned out. It really brought out the cake, like a realistic cake look by doing this, and I love ink blending. So anytime I can add ink blending onto my pages, I'm doing it, especially on a cut file. So I've used picked raspberry for my cake, and then I'm going in with a little bit of salvaged patina, and these are Distress Oxide inks, and they just blend in so nicely. So yeah, salvaged patina on my cake stand. I used candied apple for my frosting, and then I used the mustard seed for my the flames on my candles. So I am just going to quickly go ahead and add some shading to those flames. I did fussy cut those off camera. I thought that I did show enough of me cutting out the insides of my cut file. I didn't want to have to, have you guys painfully watch me do like all the other little pieces. And I did actually do the scalloped frosting down at the bottom that you can see on the cake. I did that off camera as well. I have those little red pieces already cut out. So the glue that I love to use when I back a cut file is the Tombow Mono Aqua liquid glue, and I like this glue specifically because it dries clear, but it also, once you apply it, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room before it actually adheres. So especially when you're working with a cut file with small pieces in a cut file, sometimes you have to manipulate your pieces. Sometimes you need a little bit of time to move things around, especially when you flip it over and then maybe you realize there's a hole or a gap or some is sticking out and you just need to, arrange it a little bit differently. This glue is very forgiving and I absolutely love it when I work on cut files. And I had learned this, like, to use that glue from Paige like years ago. So it's been my go-to glue for my cut files. So there was a quick shot of my completed and backed cut file. I love how it turned out. Look how fun that cake is. And now that I look back on it, I could have totally sized down those words in the actual original cut file and put it in my cake. But I'm glad I didn't, but it is a nice option. So in case I do want to create with this cut file again, I might do that. But for this specific page, I did want my title and those words on the outside of this cut file. Okay, what I'm doing now is I've trimmed a piece of white cardstock down to an 11 by 11 because I am going to mat it with a piece of one of the pattern papers from the collection. And I wanted a little something on my white cardstock. I wanted a little bit of mixed media to poke out behind my cut file, but I didn't want to go overboard. And it's funny, you're looking at it and you're like, Brianna, this is totally overboard. Like, you just kept going. But I did keep in mind that a lot of it was going to get covered up from that large cut file, as well as my photos that were going to go across the center not vertically. I know my design layout, horizontally. So that's why I added so much, just so I knew that a little bit would peek out here and there. So I did use picked raspberry, chipped sapphire, candied apple, and mustard seed for my background. And then there is that pattern paper that is going to be my base. And I love how it turned out. So I wanted to take it a step further. I took my 1-inch circle punch and a couple black pens. I have a Posca paint pen and then just a normal ink pen. I took a piece of normal white paper just from my scrap bin and I punched a hole in it using my 1-inch circle punch. And I am just going to go ahead and just trace some faux stitch lines and then outline the circle with that black ink. A lot of it does get covered up. I was just trying to bring in some of the black from the collection and I realized that I didn't actually add any of the black pieces from the collection, but that's okay. I just wanted it to kind of add a little bit of interest and break up some of that ink blend. Now, this is also what I like to do. Another idea is just to help bring in that white cardstock on top of the pattern paper is I just like to draw some black lines. You can do faux stitching, you can just do full lines. I like to break it up with adding a solid line and then a little dot. Just, it's fun. I just like a little doodly border around my cardstock. So now that I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and work on backing the one of the words from the original cut file. This one says happy. So I am pulling out the same papers that I used in my candles. So I'm just going to quickly take the actual cut file. This time I'm backing it differently just to show the two. I know there's 3 different ways. One's using the software and then one's actually using the cut file bits. But I'm showing you the second way to back a cut file is actually taking the cut file and putting it on the back side of the paper that you want to use and just tracing the inside and then cutting it around your drawn lines. So that is the backed word happy. And then to add even more ink blending, I am going to do some simple ink blending on the birthday word. I'm going to gently and softly add that ink because it is a very delicate piece and I don't want to rip it. So I'm just adding some ink on the bottom just to give it a fun ombre look, and I am using that mustard seed distress oxide ink there. So I've popped up that cut file up on foam tape and I'm going to add it in the center of all that ink blending. I did trace lines earlier, just kind of giving me an idea of where I was going to put the cut file, and I did actually put it a little bit higher than originally planned because I did want to make sure my happy birthday title was able to fit nicely, and it did. I did end up popping up happy up on foam tape, but I just glued the birthday word right on the bottom. So anyways, okay, so I am taking a few of these ephemera bits from the collection, and I am going to use two of those pieces to back behind my two of my photos. These are the just normal die cut pieces. It's a die cut piece pack, and so I picked a yellow one, and then I like a teal one, or like a mint. And then I was going through that pack, I did find 3 flags, and then I found this Yippee cake circle piece, and I loved it. I did layer it up on top of another piece, excuse me, a red piece, because my cake plate was also the same color as a Yippee cake piece. I wanted to break it up, so I added the red. All right, so now I believe I've got my photos down, and now I'm just using the 12 by 12 cardstock sticker set that comes in the 12 by 12 paper pack, and I'm gonna go ahead and start embellishing and getting some fun things down. There's that Yippee cake piece. I am gonna put it on top of that You Did It, and I love how that turned out. Now, when I adhere it down, I realize that it's right on top of a red dot. I do add something underneath it to help break up the red on red thing, since I was not wanting to do the mint on mint thing, but I do add a small little circle piece there. I did add some of those amazing, what are they called? They're like pinwheels on that sticker on top of the flags. I added a yay star, or like a sunburst, and now I'm just going through. I added a bunch of balloons. These photos are of my daughter's first birthday from last year. She had a strawberry theme. It was her very first birthday. I thought it was cute. So this collection was perfect for these photos because it has red and yellow and white. And then I did add in the pink and the mint and the blue, and it just worked. Like, it totally worked. And I love how this turned out. So now I'm going in and I'm adding a bunch of the smaller elements. I've got like, it's not a party popper. It's the thing you blow. And I can't even think of the name right now, and that's going to really bother me. But anyways, I have party hats. I do add some confetti, just a lot of the smaller bits. And that's probably like a really favorite part of the embellishing process, is adding a lot of the smaller bits. It's really like pulling everything together for me, tying everything that I've started off in the beginning from, my cut file and my ink blending, and it's just tying it all together. And I love seeing a process video. I like seeing it from start to finish, because when I do create, I don't really have like anything in mind until I start creating. That's just how my mind works. I just start creating, and I don't know how things are going to turn out until the very end. So I am pleased with how this turned out. I did think I wanted a little phrase piece there, so I pulled that from the ephemera pack. It does say "You are so incredible," and I thought it needed a little pop of orange down there. So I do adhere that down, but I think I'm pretty much done. Off camera, I do add some white paint splatters using my Dina Wakley acrylic paint spray. That is a closer look at my page, and that is it. Stay tuned for some final up-close shots. But again, happy birthday to Scrapbooking Cards Today magazine. I hope you all enjoyed this layout and this process. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!